Off too, because we usually start at 5:30. Coming to you a little bit early. We're already kicked off, but
Ooh.
that's all good. That's all good. Coming to you today with Jay and Jance on a Friday, trying to keep all of this college football news in one place. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Thanks, Ty, for always having me and hanging out with you and James is always a plus. Y'all know where to find your boy, Unfair Sports. Just search for me on YouTube. I'm always there doing what I do best, talking out the side of my neck. So, I'm ready to get back on it.
Same, same. Jance, it's been far too long, man. What have you been up to? Tell the people where they can find all your stuff.
Man, I've been chilling. I've been chilling for the most part, guys. But yeah, I'm back. I'm back, and I've been pumping out content left and right. But yeah, you guys, if you guys want to find more college football content, especially we got NFL draft coverage going on, find me at YouTube, Gent Sports. Also, if you want to try to reach out to me at Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Gent716. So definitely, again, if you want to get into contact with me personally, chat up with anything you want, hit me up there.
And guys, with the draft coming around, y'all can ask me questions about the draft. I that's probably my favorite aspect of the NFL. But
Love the draft.
the man right below Jay and I, this is the guy for your NFL knowledge. So absolutely be following him for all of that. But guys, we've got a lot to talk about, and there's a certain thing sending Alabama's Twitter on a complete frenzy, a complete meltdown, and it was a little bit of a who done it, who made this throw. Well, come to find out, it was Jalen Milroe, but there was something else from the video I saw that I was also very compelled with, and that was that Caleb Downs appears to be running with the ones. Now, Jay, I'll start with you just because of simplicity's sake. Talk to me about this, man. Jalen Milroe, we've talked extensively here on the podcast about his upside, right? About if he gets the consistency, he is going to be a dangerous, dangerous player. But Ty Simpson is a very capable quarterback. What'd you think about that throw? And then what'd you think about seeing true freshman Caleb Downs already in that position?
Twofold. Number one, watching Milroe drop the dime like he did, like he put it right there on the money. And that's, of course, impressive. At the same time, did we not expect that? Like, do we not expect Saban and his staff to recruit quarterbacks that have the capabilities of dropping those type of passes, like putting the ball in the money like he did? That's what I expected. As much as we like to, clown Bill O'Brien here and have fun poking fun at the guy,
Who, me?
he still can recruit. I mean, hell, he's going to recruit a good quarterback that has all the intangibles to do everything, not only collegiately but professionally. The only problem is that he never recognized that every other position on the field wasn't up to par at the professional level. I digress. I enjoy watching Milroe throw that pass. Like you said, Ty Simpson is I think that he is capable of being a good challenger, but this is Jalen Milroe's job to lose. He has to be he's the incumbent, and there's no reason why you would go away from him, because I do think that he has the tools needed to be able to be successful, especially in the new Tommy Rees offense. Now, the Caleb Downs piece, this is just annoying, if anything. This is that Nick Saban always finding a knife in the middle of nowhere before he fights a bear. And it's always something big. And it's not like a standard knife. It's not even like a ninja knife. It's not a samurai knife, sword, or anything. It's this massive machete that's got like mechanical arms and that will cut up the bear for him. I'm getting tired of it. I'm tired of this dude always finding these greats that he's able to get a freshman out there already competing for a starting spot. Granted, you guys did lose a lot of players going towards the draft,
Both
and just
safeties, yeah.
both
Mhm.
your safeties and going, and just attrition in general. But no, it's just like, golly, can we get this man to stop having 5 stars at every position? Just 1 year. Just 1 year. I'm being a hater right now. Yes, I know. And I'm purposely doing that because, dude, that is dope. That tells you the talent that Caleb Downs has, that he can walk in there and be like, nah, guys, I'm taking this job.
The 2023 class as a whole was spectacular, and I've said it about every live stream. The safety class in particular,
Mhm.
unbelievable. I mean, there are guys that are outside of the top 15 safeties in the nation that other classes would be top five. I think
Easily.
fairly easily. It was a great class. Jant, same question to you, man. What'd you think of the Milroe throw, and then what'd you think of Caleb Downs apparently running with the ones early, but in that position?
I was actually, again, even though it's like more of a small clip, I was pretty impressed by it. But for the most part, it seemed like Jalen Miro changed up his throw motion. Again, if you watch some film of him last year, or we watch any of the games from last year compared to this year, Yeah, he's changed up his throwing motion a little bit. You know, there was a lot of things about Jalen Milroe last year that was it was really, really concerning. And you're kind of worried that, like, can he take that next step? Can he really develop and potentially challenge Ty for that starting job? Because, I mean, you're talking about a quarterback, I mean, that was just panicking in the pocket. And that probably comes with lack of experience. But, you know, for the most part, I mean, he never really was setting his feet. He would literally throw off of his back foot a majority of his throws. You know, the pocket presence just wasn't really there. You know, even kind of running the football, which, you know, you would think Jalen Milroe would do best. You know, there would be a lot of times where he didn't know which lanes to kind of go into, you know, just in case if those edge rushers, or if he would get charged in from within the pocket, he'll kind of panic. He wouldn't know which lanes to try to choose in. I think the A&M game is a really good representation of once they actually adapted to his play style. But no, I mean, Jalen Milroe, as far as upside goes, I mean, you know, again, this might be a lazy take, but yeah, it's Lamar Jackson-esque at his size at 6'2". I mean, you look at his upper body frame, and it's even more muscular. And then he has like that Derrick Henry lower body frame with a top muscular frame. It doesn't really match up with the lower one, but it works. I mean, it is what it is. But, you know, again, you take the combination of his quickness, the explosiveness, his vision, his elusiveness in the pocket, and then he has a much stronger arm than I think a lot of people would kind of, you know, definitely give him, you know, would not give him the credit for. I think, again, you can watch the A&M game a little bit, and every time you would kind of watch those deep balls, and it would kind of it would sail under a little bit. You would think this guy doesn't, you know, he doesn't really have the power to get those throws out there. But no, a lot of it was just mechanics, just not really setting his feet and not really knowing how to really generate that much power on his throws. So, you know, again, I think Milroe, for the most part, if he can just put it all together, and if he continues to improve, and again, the clips that we've seen so far, if that can translate a little bit more onto the football field, I think this guy honestly has top 5 draft pick potential written all over him. I think Anthony Richardson kind of showcasing this year that you may not have to be, you know, Bryce Young, or you may not have to be CJ Stroud in order for you to be a top 10 pick. You just need to show the physical intangibles. You need to show the physical tools to the scouts in order for you to, you know, potentially be in those considerations. I mean, again, you look at a Josh Allen, you know, Anthony Richardson, a Trey Lance, guys that fall in those ballpark. And I think Jalen Milroe falls under there. And the funny part is, not the funny part, but the greater thing is that I think he can get even, you know, he can add way more muscle to his frame. He can potentially get up to around 225, maybe 230, and still keep that speed and that explosiveness to him. So that clip got me really, really excited, because I think a lot of Bama fans want Ty Simpson to be the guy just because he was more ready coming out of high school. But there is no question that if we're just talking about upside, about a guy that can potentially take this team to another level, and that a guy that if we're just talking about draft potential, who's going to get drafted higher if they can just match that level, Jalen Milroe, there's no question about it, has top 10 potential written all over him. So I'm excited to see that. As far as Caleb Down goes, I'm not surprised by it. I mean, you know, again, you know, losing guys like Jordan Battle, losing guys like Brian Branch, hard to replicate that. But we just don't really have as much depth, particularly at the star and the safety positions, like we do, you know, like we did last year or the year before that going into this year. So this was literally Caleb Downs. This was a great opportunity, a great chance for him to potentially become a starter. We all know the upside and the talent that this kid brings, the natural instincts to play the safety or the star position. Caleb Downs is going to be a great player. So I expect him to keep doing what he's doing, and that he'll get that starting role by the time fall camp is done with.
Yeah, and one thing, man, whenever I was going back, because I'm in the process right now of doing one of my multiple rewatches, and I actually have my notes pulled up from the Arkansas game. And there were 3 or 4 throws during the Arkansas game he made that were fantastic. One of them was a really nice one, and I highlighted it because it was anticipatory. The receiver was not out of the break yet. The receiver hadn't even turned around, and as soon as he planted his foot, Milroe was already about right here in the motion.
Did you see him? Did you see the most impressive throw to me was a screen, I think, to JoJo Earl, but he had a
sidearmed it.
Yeah, he sidearmed it, but he did it off of 1 foot. And like I said, the amount of power, the velocity, like
he generated
there is insane with that sidearm throw. I mean, a lot of, like 99% of quarterbacks, unless you're, you know, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the guys with the strong cannon arms, can make those throws. I mean, this man.
Well, Jay, go ahead. I thought you had a point you wanted to make, and then I'm going to hop in here.
No, yeah, I was going to say that he's showing all of the tools that can get you there to the next level. And that's what's critical to being successful in college football. And that's how you see some quarterbacks that end up getting drafted and you're trying to figure out where the hell they came from. They weren't one of the top quarterbacks in the country. It's those NFL traits that jump out. That's why I mentioned Bill O'Brien being able to recruit actual quarterbacks that can go pro, and Hal Milroe is one of those guys that has the tools to do that. He's just built, like I said, the anticipatory passes to where he can hit a receiver before the break, because the big difference between, and I talk about this all the time, the big difference from going from college to the NFL is in college, you're throwing the butt naked open dudes. In the NFL, you have to throw your receiver open. And so that is why you may see some names that are getting a lot of shine as far as the draft goes, is because if they start doing those things, those little pieces, those tools, you're like, oh, no, that's NFL minded. That's something that you need in order to be able to survive long-term in the NFL. And I think Milroe has those tools as long as he continues to develop and grow from what he's already doing. So no, I'm just curious how people were questioning his ability.
And this is one thing I'll add. I got to talk with someone that knows the guys who Milroe would train with down in Houston, and Quarterback Spotlight, great YouTuber, breaks down a lot of the quarterback stuff. Really, really fantastic content. He was telling me that those guys spoke so highly of Jalen Milroe. Very excited. But one thing, Jay, I've told you for a long time, this Tommy Rees offense, whenever Rees was hired, I think a lot of people were thinking, this is a clear indication as to who the quarterback will be. I felt the opposite. I felt like this has just muddied the waters in terms of both of these guys can play winning football in this Tommy Rees offense. It's just going to be a little tweak, a variation depending on how he wants to do it. But if you check the film with Notre Dame, the base sets are there for either of these guys, which I think is a great problem to have, a really great problem to have. Quick shout out real quick. F is for Fanatics. Great channel. Guys, go check out everything he does. Cody, if you want a link, you just you let me know. We'll get you in here, talk about some Florida real quick. I'd love that because y'all are looking really, really good. But let me know about that. Everyone else in the channel, be sure to go check out F is for Fanatics. Great stuff. You know, I have to agree, Jance, as well. I'm not surprised about Caleb Downs. I would talk about Downs, and Jay, how many times did I tell you I thought he had a chance to be the number one player in the nation. Now, granted, I think there were a few guys that reasonably had the argument to be the number one player in the nation, right? So that is what it is. But I certainly felt like Caleb Downs was one of those guys. So whenever you see him, I'm very excited. Now, one other name I want to talk about that I am excited about, freshman. I haven't read much, but I keep seeing the name James Smith. And boy, did Bama need a 5-star defensive lineman in a bad way. And they got one in James Smith. And this is huge. The defensive line for Alabama is going to be super interesting. Justin Aboigbe coming back is a godsend for that defensive front, especially with Jaheim Otis being there. I am very much excited for those two, Jance. Interested in hearing your perspective on that. But James Smith coming in there with a Jamil Burrows, with a Jamarian Latham. There are some guys who are fringe, right? They're right on the fringe of being able to really boom. James Smith is going to push them. Now, Jance, I'm going to start with you on this one and then go to Jay. What are you thinking about that?
Oh, I'm excited for it. We need more explosive guys that can play the 3 or some of the 1, but we need way more explosion. That's something that we kind of lacked last year. I mean, Byron Young, I thought he was going to take the next step, and he did. I mean, he was okay for the most part, but I think that was pretty much our defensive line from last year. It was okay according to kind of Bama standards, right? They can hold their own against the run, but they didn't really generate a lot of. They didn't generate a lot of push, a lot of power. And again, we didn't get that quickness, that just that absolute disruption. Which again, you take a look at games like Tennessee, you take a look at games like against LSU. We lost in the line of scrimmage. The Ole Miss game for a little bit, we lost in line of scrimmage. We need more guys that can disrupt. And Justin Aboigbe was that guy, I think, last year. And he was that guy for us when he played. I think the Texas game was arguably, in my opinion, I think that was the best game I think he'd ever played in his life, as far as just, constantly disrupting and just getting in the backfield. I mean, he did a phenomenal job. But yeah, we need more guys like that. And I think, you look at a guy like James Smith, who has all the talent and the upside in the world to potentially play that position, I think is going to be phenomenal. And like I said, Timothy Smith, Timothy Smith has shown the potential of being that type of person.
Yeah, no doubt.
You look at guys like Justin Agbogbie again, the disruptors. Then you look at freshmen like Jordan Renaud, who again, I'm hearing he's getting a lot of buzz. I mean, so we're starting to incorporate and get more guys, more guys into the rhythm. I mean, you can make an argument the last 2 to 3 years we haven't really, cycled in as many defensive linemen like we used to. I mean, I think for the most part, it's always been that Byron Young, Justin Agbogbie, I forgot the who was our tackle for last year? I
DJ Dale.
DJ Dale. Yeah, it's always been those three, and we haven't really, cycled in and put as much talent. Timothy Smith will get in there occasionally, but we haven't tried to get there as much as possible. So, I can't wait for it, man. It's going to be a battle because I don't think any position's there yet, but no, it would be super exciting to see a player like James Smith included on that defensive line. We need more explosiveness. We need more disruptors, especially if we want to get in there. Again, you look at what George has been able to do over the last 2 or 3 years, even losing the defensive linemen they continues to cycle in guys that can disrupt. So that's what we need more of.
Absolutely. Jay, before I pass it to you, want to give Cody an opportunity. Cody, tell the people who you are, where they can find your content, all that good jazz.
Yeah, most definitely. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. Sorry, I'm in the car. I'm waiting. I work nights, so I work kind of an odd schedule, but what exactly? Sorry, I had like a gap in between what we were talking about. What was?
Oh, tell the people where they can find all your great YouTube content first. Where's your channel located on YouTube? What's it called?
Introductions.
Oh, yeah. You can find that at F is for Fanatic on YouTube. And then we have a Twitter. It's at F_is for Fanatics.
Spinning wheel of doom and
The
suing.
Beautiful car. The beautiful car.
Man, that spinning wheel on StreamYard, let me tell you what, it comes for all. There is no escaping it. Well, until that gets sorted out. Jay, what are you thinking, man? 5-star defensive lineman comes in, is making some noise. I mean, I'm happy. But from your outside perspective, what does that say to you?
As an outsider looking in, I ran back and looked at the depth chart that you all have, and honestly, you all lost a lot of players.
Yeah, we did.
That line really feel like it's got decimated, and then in your 2 deep, it's basically your freshmen. All these new guys you brought in from this current class, which granted was a bunch of 5-stars.
With Jaheim Otis in there as well. Thank God Jaheim Otis is there. He is a monster.
Yeah, exactly. And so having that young line, I'm kind of curious to how they're going to perform this coming season because young players usually make those silly mistakes that your veterans, your redshirt sophomores and juniors don't because they've already made them back in their freshman and sophomore seasons. So I'm curious to see what they're going to look like as far as execution goes, but I don't question it with the way that Saban and staff has always worked it, focusing on the meticulous things and getting that one movement right every single time is going to do nothing but help accelerate them going forward on the field. But outside of that, man, I'm curious to see if Ronald can go out there and try to take somebody's job, man. I mean, Justin's probably got it as that redshirt senior, but he's a redshirt senior and he's still there. That's not something that I feel like is very common with the Alabama defensive line. Usually those guys are gone by their redshirt junior year, just because of the talent and the level you bring in. Now he's back one more year. I can see that freshman pushing to get in there, but again, execution is what's critical. I do like where you guys sit regardless. I mean, I think the focus the last year or two was really Will Anderson, and that was really it. Like, no disrespect to Byron Young or even DJ Dale. It's really been the Will Anderson show, and that's all everybody talks about, and it's really been always the focus.
Yep,
I think now having that big name gone, the defensive line can actually make a name for themselves and really go out there and show that, no, we've been here. Y'all just cared about one dude and you shouldn't have. And so now I think you'll see a lot more attention on this line, probably from like Tim Smith or Jaheim Otis go out there and really make something happen. because they've just kind of been disregarded because you had, big boy Will Anderson running around. Hell, you did a video on it with him being the secret weapon, and
that was
made sense.
after his first game in college football. I made a video on Will, ironically, that got me here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that was
after his first game, broken
watching
down the
that
film,
man. He ate, and it was granted, it was warranted for him to get the attention he got. But my thing is now the rest of that line has an opportunity to show off and show who they are.
I think that's very fair. Now, there's only one thing I will say. I think Aboigbe probably would have left this past season. He sustained a neck injury game 3 or 4 into the season and was shut down. But point is there. It has not been that group that you became so accustomed to seeing, where you went from Deron Payne to Barmore to Quinnen Williams to Jonathan. I mean, just a laundry list. Hopefully this is taking it back. Cody, we've been talking about, first and foremost, the Twitter clip that's sending Alabama Twitter into a frenzy of Jalen Milroe throwing a dime. Now, as nice as that is, what I was more taken aback from was the fact that true freshman Caleb Downs looks to already be running with the ones at safety. So I don't know if you've seen the clip. If you haven't, what does it say, though, that a true freshman this early on might be pushing for playing time at a position like safety?
Yeah, truthfully, I've always said that if there are 3 positions that you can throw a true freshman in, and he actually,
we talked about this last time, yeah,
can look the part, I would say it would be safety, corner, and wide receiver. So, it's a little harder for an like a linebacker or offensive defensive line for that to happen, just because of the strength, unless your name is Harold Perkins. But yeah, we have a guy named Jakeem Jackson, and he's kind of balling out too, and he's a true freshman, first spring practice. Now, I will tell you this, everybody's up in frenzies about these quarterbacks throwing dimes, but guys, remember, it's on air.
That's why my biggest takeaway was Caleb Downs. Yeah, that's why my biggest takeaway from the video is Downs.
Everybody's freaking out right now about Max Brown. He threw a dime to Aiden Mazzell, our true freshman wide receiver, and everybody just wants to crown him the starter. But we know what happens. Look at AR. I mean, he had a prolific pro day, but that's throwing on air again. And essentially when the game time was on, he was so wishy-washy. So, but yeah, man, I think true freshman wise, a safety, a corner, and a wide receiver can really ball out and be an instant impact player. And truthfully, for these programs, you got to have 1 or 2 guys like that a year. I mean, you're taking these guys, they're supposed to be 5 stars and high 4 stars. They should be starting and balling out right away. You know what I mean?
I actually love that last take. I completely agree with everything you said, but that last little bit, I actually want to focus on for just a brief second before we move on to the next topic. You should have a few of those guys every year, and that is absolutely the truth. That is, I'm not saying that all of your guys have to. Yeah, that's how you know you're recruiting difference makers. Right? When that guy can come in and push the seniors, the juniors, push them around, that's when you know you're recruiting difference makers. I love that point, because across the board, I think that is such a great thermometer, so to speak, to check the temperature of your team, right? Are the freshmen coming in and really making an impact? And if so, I guess it's a double-edged sword. It could mean that your team is crap, or it could mean that your team is recruiting at an elite level. And thankfully for teams like...
But it doesn't...
Go ahead.
Ty, if it happens, then you should be more excited, because that means that you're improving in your evaluation process.
Oh, I agree.
If you're having true freshmen come in and take over guys that have been in the program 2 or 3 years, you should be excited about that. That you've taken the next level up in a program when that starts happening.
Oh, no doubt. I've been forthright. I thought Caleb Downs probably should have been the number 1 player in high school football. Now, granted, I've also been forthright in saying there's like 10 guys who could have 15 guys who could have a principled argument at that for the class of 2023, and you're not going to hear anything from me. I just thought he was on that list. But guys, you want to know about a big win today. Well, I say today, yesterday. Lincoln Riley gets a tight end that everybody in the nation wanted. I had someone, an Oklahoma fan, comment on the video. This was great. He said, Ty's so enthusiastic about this because he didn't go to Georgia. And I just started laughing. I loved the comment. And I was like, there's a slimmer of that is absolutely true. No doubt about it. This is a fantastic win for Lincoln Riley. I understand everybody's going to talk about the defense. And look, we can have that conversation because I have been leading the charge on that conversation. Nobody's questioning the offense. But here's what I will say in the interest of fairness. That was a defense that they inherited that was already not good, right? Alex Grinch, Lincoln Riley, whenever they got to that team, they had to rebuild. So now they have the full offseason to really start putting their imprint. If that defense just incrementally increases in their production, this could be a dangerous team because we know what they can do offensively. Guys, you know it's no secret what I think about the tight end position. And it's been no secret what I think of Deuce Robinson. And I think this is a slam dunk. I know, Hank, another offensive 5-star, sure, no doubt. This is still a slam dunk. And it is what it is. Jay, go ahead.
I'll lead us off on this one. So I'm gonna, if anybody on here that's of course subscribed to my channel as well as yours, you're gonna hear this twice when I stream at 6:30 later on tonight. But this has been the question I've been wanting to ask about the Deuce Robinson pickup. Fantastic pickup. As Hank mentioned, it's another 5-star on the offensive side that Lincoln Riley's fantastic at getting. He always gets those because there's going to be production. There's going to be a lot of yards. There's going to be a lot of action. You're going to be successful in his offense as they were successful at Oklahoma. But I asked this question, and this is all sincerity. Does he even suit up for USC ever? And I say that because if he's drafted in the top 10 in the MLB draft, he'd be an idiot not to go to baseball instead of staying in college football. Now, this is why I say that. The Kyler Murray situation compared to him, two different scenarios. Kyler's a quarterback. The pay in the NFL at quarterback compared to what he was going to make at baseball, this to this, period. Tight end and wide receivers do not make the quarterback money at the NFL level, especially of what he would make. Exactly. Especially what he would make as a quote unquote the next coming of Aaron Judge in Major League Baseball. So he's more likely, no pun intended, a home run to go to baseball and make that real money rather than trying to go to college football and then go to the NFL where he will make probably a quarter of what he can make as a baseball player. That's just my thought. I really do not believe he's going to play at USC. It's great that they have him on paper. So if he decides to come back, if he goes baseball for a few years and be like, this ain't for me, but I don't see him not being successful on the baseball field.
See, it's interesting you say that. I don't know almost anything about his baseball. I just know he is a supremely gifted baseball player. Obviously, I know that, right? But I don't know like a mock.
Aaron Judge is 6'9",
I know they comped him to Aaron Judge, which was wild to me.
6'9", 250 pounds, and he's huge. Like you could tell, he's a mammoth human being. Think about LeBron James playing baseball, basically. Back when LeBron played at Miami, when he was bigger.
Yeah.
That is really what Deuce Robinson is. He's 6'6", but he's still a mammoth human being, and his ability to swing through at 230 and not hit the ball the way he does with his hand-eye coordination. That is why I understand the comp. Now I'm 3 inches shorter, but yeah, that's it. That's why he's huge. Slugger. He's a slugger, man. He really is. And that's why I asked that question. I got to know, is he going to actually play?
That's interesting. Cody, what are your thoughts?
Guys, I kind of think it's for that program, I think it's kind of a, not a miss or a whiff, but just kind of a wasted effort when you have so much other needs on the other side of the ball. Plus the baseball thing. Now, I'll tell you, that was the coolest video. Did you guys see the actual video he put out?
I didn't.
For his commitment. That was one of the coolest things ever. So hats off to him on that. But like I said, with the baseball thing, I kind of just think do you need one more weapon at USC on the offensive side of the ball? No, I would have rather them went out and probably got like the number one corner in the nation or the number one D end in the nation, something that's gonna help you. We talk about impact players.
They got
scoring
a
points
top
isn't the
100
problem.
Braylon Shelby. He's a really talented guy. They got an inside linebacker, Tackett Curtis, as well. Really talented.
I mean, if you have a knife and you get a bigger knife, why not get the bigger knife? Like, I mean, I get it, but like you said, Ty, earlier, he didn't go to Georgia. That's probably the best thing because that's all they.
Yeah,
had
thank
was some
God he
random
didn't go to
tight
Georgia.
Yeah, thank God he didn't go to
Thank
Georgia.
God. Thank you.
No, look, man, here's where I hear you. I do think that obviously USC needs to recruit better defensively, and I think they're aware of that. Where I do disagree is this. If you have the opportunity to get Deuce Robinson, you get Deuce Robinson, because you want to know one of the ways you can help out your defense, keep your offense on the field. All right. And tight ends are so good at extending drives. And I'm very excited to see what this offense looks like, especially with Raleek Brown. My goodness.
What is the actual chances do we know that he's even gonna go
to USC?
What's the chance? Yeah, what's the chances of him actually going extremely high in the draft for MLB?
So I'm personally operating, and granted, I'm doing this because thank you, Trojan. Tackett Curtis was Louisiana State Player of the Year. He was fantastic. Probably a little bit underrated as well. I actually think there is a massive principled argument to make that he was underrated. But regardless, I am operating under the assumption that he is a for sure lock to go to USC to play tight end. I don't know enough about his baseball, and I don't know enough about baseball draft and all of that. I'm going to be honest. That's the one sport I've always tried to get into. I love the history of the game. I like researching it. I like reading about it, but I cannot for the life of me watch a baseball game.
I like going to them.
I can't even do that.
Yeah, me too.
I was at a Rangers game, and we got to the 5th inning, and I was like, guys, I got to go. I can't do this anymore. I'm bored.
That's fair.
Yeah, it is what it is.
You weren't drunk yet, were you?
I was just wondering how high the draft speculations are for him going to the MLB. That I was just wondering that. That was kind of a thought that I was thinking of.
I'm not sure. I'm operating under the assumption that he will be at USC, just because I just don't know. Jance, thoughts on USC getting a real big win?
No, I think it's huge, especially because again, I mean, their best tight end I think right now is Jude Wolf, who again I watched him at St. John Bosco. I think he's talented, but he hasn't really done that much ever since. They need a big time playmaker. I mean, Malcolm Epps was a solid tight end for them, especially more of a blocking guy, but in a red zone threat. But he wasn't that Brock Bowers or he wasn't that Michael Mayer. He wasn't that type of caliber player, or the tight ends that Iowa continues to put out almost every single year. He wasn't that caliber. So getting a guy like Deuce Robinson, who again he's got a lot of comps to Jimmy Graham, who I think as a comp, especially coming out of high school, could be that, especially because he kind of looks like Jimmy Graham. But no, you're talking about a 6'6", 230-pound tight end that has extreme athletic ability. He actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Darnell Washington, as far as again he's not the best route runner in the world, but his athletic ability is and especially with his frame, he's going to add on 20 pounds easily.
And he can learn to run the routes.
Yeah, and
his athleticism is there.
Like he's fluid. It's kind of like Jatavion Sanders a little bit. It's kind of just very similar to Jatavion a little bit there. But no, this is a huge get for USC, and this is just kind of one of those things where you add on more weapons. I mean, you look at the potential star power that they have. Brendan Rice, I think, is a potential player that can take the next step for USC right there with Caleb. Do I think he'll start week 1? It's interesting, right? Because I think he's going to be enrolling in the summer. And, we talk about the draft. Well, the draft is on July 7th. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of happens there. I know, again, I understand he's a top 20 MLB draft pick. But, when players get drafted, it's very, very rare for rookies or straight up, 18, 19-year-old kids or wherever the age they are to just automatically go to the league. It's rare. Like sometimes you'll start off, depending on how your development is, they may start you out at single A, they may start you out at double, or they'll start you out at triple A. And you have to work, you have to work yourself up, and you have to prove that you can play among those guys. And even when you're playing it's different compared to, the NFL where you're in the XFL compared to the NFL because that's a developmental league. It's different when you're getting called upon. Like the single, double, and triple A's are no joke. Like that, like baseball is one of the hardest sports to actually continuously stay there at that top level. It is no joke at all. I mean, triple A is, you could separate and it may be its own thing. I mean, that's how talented and good it is. I mean, again, I live in Buffalo, so again, I work with the Bisons for a little bit, and there are a crap ton of first round picks, guys that were top 10, top 5 overall picks, top 20 overall picks that are still there. They cannot get called up. It's rare to get them called up. So, who's to say that Deuce Robinson is even going to, again, he may play for the minor leagues there. So I think if you're Deuce Robinson, you might have to think about, like, hey, I may get drafted top 10 or top 20 overall, but, when, how many years is it going to take for me to potentially get called up by whatever team kind of drafts me? His career may not end up going the way that it actually is anyway. It's not really a kind of more of a guaranteed thing, very similar situation again. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think he's going to play for USC. I think he has a great chance to develop and be that guy, especially playing under Lincoln Riley and that system over there. We all know USC, even with Caleb Williams is even gone, he's going to find a quarterback, right? Lincoln Riley is the quarterback whisperer. He's always going to find a quarterback or he's going to develop a quarterback there. So, again, I think that for the most part, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I hope he honestly stays with the league because I think he honestly could end up more as a better tight end than I think he would be as a baseball player. And I think that just would be the smarter decision there, especially because tight ends nowadays, the Travis Kelce's, the Rob Gronkowski's, the Mark Andrews, like these are guys that are starting to get a lot more paid because a lot more people are starting to see their value grow the more and more. Like tight end is a very rare position to get a absolute just stud. Again, Dawson Knox, I'm sorry. I'm a Bills fan, but he got paid $50 million with I think 32 or $33 million guaranteed, and he's not even the best tight end on the world. So that value for that position is going up more and more and more every single day, almost every single year. So, again, if Deuce Robinson pays out, and by the time he actually gets in there, and if he can actually perform for the NFL, this is a guy that could be paid a lot of really, really good money. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. But overall wise, a great move by Lincoln Riley. You add another weapon for your potential quarterback or for your future quarterback. And I think I love this move overall for USC and for Deuce Robinson.
Here's what I will say, responding to this comment, Eric. Lincoln will use Deuce. He's going to use Deuce because he's a mismatch. He is, I'm telling you, man, this cat is going to walk in. I wouldn't be surprised he walks in and within the first few weeks, I mean, we're starting to see Deuce Robinson kind of make his impact because he's a 6'6" tight end.
Kyle Pitts.
He can block. That's the biggest thing. As long as he can block, he's going to be good.
And
go ahead.
And you bring up Kyle Pitts. We talk about that his route running isn't that this young kid's route running isn't the greatest. Well, you know what Florida did with Kyle Pitts? They made him practice with the wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's exactly what they'll do.
He had to split reps with the wide receivers. Guys, remember that Kyle Pitts lost out on the Mackey Award because he didn't play enough snaps at tight end one year. He was flexed out too much. Route running is as athletic as this kid is. Route running, I'm not worried about.
And he's fluid too.
He's very fluid,
very, very fluid. So he can definitely get it down.
That's the key. I love that.
I guess I didn't realize how big his frame was.
He's huge.
So because Kyle was always thin until his senior year, he put on some weight, but he was always kind of a thin tight end. But if you got a guy with a frame as big as Darnell Washington, we saw what that did at Georgia.
I think he's got a little bit more fluidity than Darnell Washington as well. Yeah. Darnell's bigger. Darnell's 6'9". I think he was 240 coming out of high school, 235. Deuce is 6'6", 225. And the point Jance made that I love, you might not be a refined route runner right now, but if you have fluidity, you can become a route runner. That's all well and good. And two, I don't expect your tight ends coming out of high school to have been taught by your high school coach the ins and outs and intricacies of route running. You know what I mean? So super interested to see where this goes. But guys, there's another team we have got to talk about. Michigan is really surging in recruiting right now. They are getting attention from a lot of five-star players. They are getting they got a five-star quarterback today. So we have five-star defensive linemen interested in Michigan. We have four-star blue chip guys showing interest in Michigan and a five-star quarterback today. Is the wind changing in the Big Ten? Jay, I'll start with you.
Get off mute real quick. I'm pretty high on Michigan right now. They pulled off two things that they have not been able to do in the initial portion of the Harbaugh era. They beat Ohio State twice, and they've been to two playoffs. Were those situations ended perfectly? No, but at the same time, they were going. So they're showing that they have the capabilities of winning the games that's going to get them to the end. And Harbaugh is doing a better job of managing the game itself. His staff is doing better. Now, they've had some attrition when it comes to position coaches and coordinators, but I do think that they're fine. I think that this pickup at quarterback basically, and Jaden Davis said this, that Harbaugh basically said the program's in your hands when you come in. That is the goal. And so J.J. McCarthy was also a five-star quarterback. I mean, we think that he's okay. We don't think that he's a world beater, but we'll see what it looks like next season. But he's sending the program in the right direction, even with the looming, investigation and whatever crap is going on there as far as them breaking rules. But yeah, I think Harbaugh was out here making a statement somehow, years later, he figured out, after taking a pay cut and giving money back, he figured out how to get out there, get recruits, and win key games to where now they got to pay him his money back. Yeah. I'm impressed. I'm very much invested in what Michigan is doing right now. They're going to become my Big Ten team to pay attention to, just because I'm intrigued if they can really take down Ohio State and basically make them switch roles for a few years. I'm truly curious to see how long they'll be switching roles before more rumors come out that Harbaugh is going to go back to the NFL. Crazy that they were able to bring this up this early and get their quarterback now, which is also a good thing. Having your quarterback early allows you the opportunity to focus and have them focus basically on recruiting other recruits to your school, bringing in the class together, making it kind of a family type, Estique type setup. And so, yeah, man, he's doing it. I don't know how, but he's doing it. I'll give it to him on that.
Yeah, I love the point about quarterback recruiting because, Cody, I'm going to pass it to you. Y'all have DJ Lagway, who's out there recruiting the number one wide receiver in the nation, trying to get him. What are you thinking about Michigan recruiting?
Yeah, man, I'm going to tell you this. I find this very, very interesting. I think that now Brian Hartline is still probably the best recruiter right now, wide receiver / offense wise in the nation. We know that.
Yeah.
By far, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You can't argue with what he's done.
There's nothing to argue there. Yeah.
Billy Napier walks by the number one wide receiver in the nation. It's skipping me right now. He's down there.
Jeremiah Smith.
Down there. Yep. He was just down there on a recruiting weekend with DJ Lagway. They set that up, and this is important to get your quarterback early too in a class. This is why. And he's out there at the state track meet, and Billy Napier walks by, waves to him, and he says, "Go Gators." So, I think with the looming rumors of Hartline getting a head coaching job somewhere, I think some of the magic is starting to wear off of Ohio State. Also, I think there's another team that you guys need to be watching for in the Big Ten. It's Wisconsin.
Oh yeah.
Luke Fickell.
Nick Evers going up there. Great quarterback battle about to be
happening.
That
talent is there, man. Their defense is loaded.
Yep.
Their defense is
they got a loaded defense, and Luke Fickell's going to put them to work.
It's exciting to see a shakeup in the Big Ten finally, if Michigan can do it. And I think Wisconsin. My dad's he's an alum, and was about ready to burn his jersey last year. And I think it's super exciting for Fickell to be there, and Fickell's going into Ohio and getting kids too. I think in 2 years that it will tell us if Ohio State has lost the magic.
Interesting. And there were some Ohio State fans not happy with the current state of things, especially with them losing twice to Michigan. Now, Jant, same question, man. What are you thinking about Michigan's recruiting right now?
I want to ask you guys this. This is actually very interesting because this actually kind of shocked me. So when you take a look at Michigan's recruiting classes, do you know how many top five? Do you know if these guys have any top five classes over the last, let's say, 7-8 years?
With Harbaugh, didn't they have a top 5? Did they come close? I think they were supposed to have Najee Harris, right? That class I know was really good for them. I think it had
That was close, yeah.
Rashawn Gary.
Yeah.
2017 was the highest.
1 sec, Chance. Sorry, let me. Cody's got to head out. Cody, go ahead and give yourself one last plug where everybody can find all your content, and then you can go ahead and head out. Oh, maybe he's already headed out.
Yeah, think we lost him. Yeah.
Oh, lost the spinning wheel of doom.
Oh well, if he comes back in here, we'll have him give himself a send off. Go ahead, Jance. Continue.
Yeah,
I'm
but
so sorry.
20. No, you're right. 2017, they finished 7th. That was the closest that they ever got to a top 5 class. Everything else has been. The last one was 10th, but everything else has been 12th, 13th, 22nd, 15th, 17th. So Michigan, one thing that I've been super impressed with Jim Harbaugh is the fact that he's winning with less talent compared to Ohio State. Ohio State is constantly getting top 5 classes. The worst they ever got was in was their 2018 class, and that was when Urban Meyer had to leave, and a lot of recruits they were just unsure of what was going to go on there, even though they still had, I think, the 15th or somewhere within the top 25. But that was their worst recruiting class. Everything else has been literally top 5 or has been top 5 almost every single year. Michigan, I love and again too, Michigan, they're retaining the players, right? They're retaining players, they're developing at a very, very high level. Michigan's offensive line is one of those teams that you just think that they're always going to have a great offensive line. Yeah, they lost a couple starters, but guess what? You replace them with graduate seniors or 5th year or 4th year or guys that have already gotten a lot of experience already, just based off of just rotational stats or just kind of based off of their position. These are guys that have a lot of experience. So Michigan's offensive line is going to be fine. Guys, their receiving core, like think about this for a second. Like you look at guys like Roman Wilson, Cornelius, or AJ Henning, like that actually might be the most underrated receiving core in the country. All 3 guys are seniors. All guys have a lot of experience, and a lot of guys that showed a lot of promise, especially Roman, who I think Roman was the number 1 guy for JJ. So Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, their defense, we all know their defense is going to be really, really good. Michigan, it seems like the change of the guard may be on them, because now all of a sudden they're starting to get a lot of interest from a lot of blue chip guys, because now you're Jim Harbaugh or you're that coaching staff, you're going into these 5-star kids' living rooms and saying, look what we're doing, look what Ohio State's doing, and then look what we're doing. We won our conference 2 years in a row. We beat them at home, on the road, especially the last one where we beat them soundly on the road, and we pretty much dominated them with physicality soundly. And then look at what we're doing with our philosophy. We're changing our offensive philosophy. We're not that same team like we were back in 2015 or 2016. We're changing our philosophy on both sides of the ball. We're getting smaller on the defensive side of the ball as far as our defensive line. Like look at the prospects that they're getting. Normally they'll get those 315, 320 guys. They're pulling that what Saban did back in 2013, 2014, where he started to recruit smaller guys that played 3 or 1. Right nowadays, Nick Saban, again, if you're playing at nose, we don't want you that much at 330, like at 350, 360, like we used to. Best case scenario, we're going to get you to 325, maybe 320 if we can, right? Like we're seeing right now with Jaheim Otis. But besides Jaheim, the biggest guy that we ever had playing nose was DJ Dale. Everyone else has been 295, 300 that's playing at 1. So Michigan, they're changing their entire culture around, and they're proving to these kids that, we can tell you that we're changing the philosophy, but let me show you. Let me stop talking. Let me show you what we're actually doing, or that we're actually capable of doing. And Michigan, so far, if you look at the last 2 to 3 years, they are honestly, they've been the better program as far as development, as far as what they're doing with talent, and as far as being able to retain a lot of that talent, and still getting some other guys incorporated in there and turn them into 1st round draft prospects. So yeah, it seems like the guard is starting to kind of change, and you can make an argument the last 2 to 3 years that Jim Harbaugh has been better than Ryan Day. Just
No
as
doubt,
an overall manager, as an overall general manager, he's been that guy. So I love what Michigan's doing right now. And, it's going to be interesting to see what they do from a recruiting standpoint. Again, they haven't had a top 5 class since he's been there. And the fact that this could be his first one, I think goes to show you that kids are really starting to buy into what Jim Harbaugh and Michigan and what they're brewing.
One of the things that's so interesting about this is I was hard on Harbaugh. I'll tell you the year, but I was very hard on Harbaugh, especially Jance after the Citrus Bowl a few years ago.
Yeah.
Whenever Bama came into that game, backup quarterback, several players had opted out of that game. And I made a video and I was like, Harbaugh, this is your best chance so far to beat that next level team, to beat that upper echelon team, because he was winning games, right? But it was when he played that 1A level team, they'd come up just short. And they got shellacked by Bama that year. I think the first or second play of the game was like a huge pass play to Jerry Jeudy. And Bama never looked back. After that year, I was like, man, there seems to be stagnation. And certainly I wasn't saying they need to fire Harbaugh. Certainly not. He's winning too many games. My question was, are you going to be able to break through the stagnation? The answer is a resounding yes. Hats off. My question was answered, and now I have to eat crow, and I will do so gladly. I'd much rather be wrong and see a program do well than be correct and see a program not do well, right? I'm in a much better place being wrong with them doing well. Jance, I think both of you and Jay, y'all have had 10 out of 10 takes because I completely agree. If you would have asked me 3 years ago, is the garb changing in the Big Ten? Is Ohio State losing it? I might have laughed. You know what I mean? Like I've chuckled a little bit and been like, they can't beat Ohio State. They're not there. Fast forward. They're every bit where Ohio State is, if not breaking through. I am super interested to see what Michigan does. And if I'm not mistaken, aren't they really starting to make up ground in some other 5-star battles? I think I saw something, a 5-star defensive lineman was really starting to show some love to Michigan. I forget who though. I cannot for the life of me remember who. But here's a question I have for both of you. What happens if Michigan pulls off the three-peat this year?
Go ahead, Jance.
No, I'll say that. Yeah, the guard is completely changed. It's over. As far as just who's really taking control. Because I think if they beat Ohio State 3 times in a row, and especially from the recruiting trail, one of the biggest battles is that Ohio-Michigan area, right? That Ohio-Michigan area, that those bloodlines, and for the long time, Ohio State has dominated that battle, including going into Michigan territory and stealing a lot of their guys. That, from a local standpoint, I think is going to completely change. I mean, it's happening right now. Ohio is not really winning a lot of their battles like they kind of used to, the Buckeyes, even though, again, Ohio is a very, very talented state, very, very underrated state that a lot of people kind of just ignore. That St. Edwards, Ionitis areas, those high schools, really, really good as far as developing NFL prospects. But I think that guard changes to a point where I think Michigan actually can go in there and get a lot of those blue chip guys from that state. I mean, it used to happen back in the day, back when, back during the 70s and back during, of course, the 80s and, of course, the 90s a little bit, where Michigan was really good. But yeah, that guard, I think, changes from a local standpoint. And I think that's crucial, because that is where a lot of those hardcore battles, as far as some of the best players, come from those particular areas. So that becomes really, really huge there. I think if Michigan wins from a third time, it's over. I think Michigan completely dominates the local landscape of it. And that's something that's going to make that a lot of fans are going to question Ryan Day. I don't think he's going to get fired, because again, he almost got you to a national championship. He probably should have got you there. But 3 years in a row to your rival is something that Ohio State fans are just not going to take lightly. And they're going to question. Again, you got Jim Knowles. You had all these hires, what's going on here? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens about that.
Jay, before you go, I do want to say this while we've been on the live. Michigan is now in the top 5 of one of the top offensive tackles in the nation. 4-star offensive tackle Blake Frazier dropped a top 5 of Michigan, LSU, Clemson, Florida, and Texas. Go ahead, Jay.
There you have it. It started with that 5-star quarterback today, and now you're going to start seeing a lot of this. This is no different than, well, in a way it's different, but not as different as like the Coach Prime effect that we're seeing with Colorado, how they're ending up in all of these top 5s, top 7s, and they're starting to win players that Colorado has not been able to win ever. Harbaugh's wins against Ohio State have become like the material needed to walk into a room and say, you should come to Michigan. And I like that Michigan did it slowly. They took the slow route. They took their time, they let them figure it out, and they grew from that. Something that we don't get nowadays for the most part. You rarely get a coach the opportunity to take his time and build it, especially if you know that he can do enough, because he was winning at Michigan. He just wasn't winning the most important games, but he was winning overall. So it wasn't a reason to fire him. And so because of that, and because of them taking their times, I can totally see them winning against Ohio State a third time. But I will say this caveat. I can see it happening, but I feel like Ohio State's going to win the next game. I think that that's going to just keep it more of a balanced attack. I think it's going to be more of an Oklahoma Texas type setup, where one team wins most of the time, but the other does come in with some good games and good seasons and do their thing. I think Michigan's on that point right now. Very much shade to all you Texas fans, because I don't like any of you. Kidding. But no, I do think that it's going to be a balanced attack back and forth between Ohio State and Michigan. And I think Michigan is here to stay until Harbaugh goes to the NFL, if that does happen. Because his name's going to come up for every NFL coaching job every single season, just because he's had success at that level. And honestly, that is one thing that he could have used in all of his recruiting is, I've gotten to the Super Bowl and I know how to get you there. He just wears everybody out, and the only thing that helps him right now is that he's at college and these kids are gone after about 3 or 4 years, sometimes 5.
I think my favorite Harbaugh story is whenever he recruited the offensive tackle and walked into the house with the cleats on and wouldn't take them off. That's just a classic. That's a classic. But
dude,
guys,
running around with his shirt off, throwing footballs with students.
Hey, man, he's about it. He's about it. But it is, look, they're on the other side now, right? They are no longer the prey in the Big Ten, right? Now they hunt. Ohio State they get to see what it's like for that shoe to be on their other foot. They've been the hunter in the Big Ten for way too long, and now the
rabbit's got the gun.
Yeah, it ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun. Yeah, exactly. 100%. I want to end on this right here. As always, Oklahoma football news. Jay, I wanted to just kind of pass it to you. Have you talk openly, whether that's recruiting, spring, what's interesting you right now? We're going to have a conversation about Oklahoma.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. So, as you know, my channel mainly focuses on Oklahoma football. I've got a live stream coming up at 6:30 where we're going to go through offensive line depth and some additional news and stuff. But no, Oklahoma on the recruiting trail has really been trending up heavily with a lot of players that have been kind of shocking, to be honest. One of our biggest qualms that we had over the years with the old regime was that defense. We could not get anybody. And honestly, right now, it looks like that's the only players we can get. We're only really getting crystal balls and predictions and stuff and future casts for defensive players. We've got like 2 or 3 5-star defensive linemen that look like they most likely will come to Oklahoma, and mainly because of the Brent Venables rules of, if you're going to go do OVs other places, do those first before you come and commit here. That slows it up. But at the same time, he's also competing with the big programs now. These aren't little recruits. These aren't just, just some players that, you could probably get if you just really put in effort with. No, he's battling the big dogs of the SEC. And the Godfather over there at Ohio State.
Larry Johnson.
He's battling all the real recruiters right now. And so seeing the Williams and Nwaneri, who came out of Kansas City, where PJ Adebayo came from, similar personalities. And honestly, I think that that's a lock. And then seeing Todd Bates is out there killing the game. watching some of the film and stuff from practice, man, PJ is going to be a monster. And he was the guy I was the highest on coming into this spring. And yeah, I think he's sold.
Well,
He's sold.
it was a stream we were doing a while ago, and we were talking about whether or not for Bama, for Oklahoma, some true freshmen to watch. And for Oklahoma, I threw out the name Adebayor, and someone was like, I don't know that he starts. I don't know, man. The more I watch, the more I'm like, I think he could come in and take someone's job. I really do. And I don't say that to disparage anybody on roster. He's that good. Jance, what are your thoughts, man? Oklahoma's in an interesting place. Crystal Ball's flying in left, right, and center for top-tier defensive linemen, and the Sooners are in an interesting place in the spring. What are your thoughts?
I'm not surprised. When Brent Venables got hired, that's one thing that he prioritized at Clemson more than anybody else was getting that defensive line. Again, for those who are unfamiliar with it, I mean, look at their 2016 class.
I try and forget it.
I mean, 4 defensive linemen came from that class that were first round. I mean, 3 of them were first round picks: Dexter Lawrence, Wilkins, Farrell, and then Bryant was the worst one, and he ended up being a second round pick.
Oh yeah,
that was absolutely incredible. And then the recent one, I mean, again, Tyler Davis, Miles Murphy, and Brian Brzee. Both those dudes, Brian Brzee and Murphy, are probably going to end up as first-round picks. That was all because of Venables and what he's been able to prioritize, and especially I think too one underrated key position has been that linebacking depth slot, especially those hybrids that can play as those safety/linebacking guys. Trent Simpson was kind of one of those guys. Simmons was the best one out of all of them. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Oklahoma going into year 2. Especially, how they're going to present a lot of those guys, right? Those freakish, athletic, hybrid type players, and especially how they can get stronger and more quicker, more explosive, more on the defensive front. But no, from a recruiting standpoint, looking at all these crystal balls and looking at all these guys that a lot of these guys, a lot of players have a lot of interest in. Brent Venables is a very, very key figure. If we're just talking about defensive ball and knowing the staff that he's been able to put together. There's no question in my mind that Oklahoma sooner rather than later are going to start to get a lot of those blue chip guys on that defensive line. And again, get back to what they used to do back during those early 2000s. That's really dominate up front, especially in those trenches. That's something that he was a part of when he was at Oklahoma during, as that DC. Now he's trying to get right back to that winning formula. I think for the most part, Venables, again, it's going to be a process. Again, it's not the TCU or, it's not the TCU approach like there. But even now when he was at Clemson, it took about 2 or 3 years in order for him to get it right. Again, Shaq Lawson, it took like 3-4 years in order for him to kind of develop and be that top tier guy. I think for the most part, it's going to take a process. It's going to take some time. But as long as Venables continues to recruit, get those blue chip guys, the more and more is going to be coming there. Oklahoma is going to be fine.
So here's one thing I've always thought. What kind of program do you want? Do you want a flash in the pan? Do you want something that you can go out and race with tomorrow? Or do you want to build yourself an F1 car? And if the answer is you want to build yourself an F1 car, have the anticipation that this could take a few years. There's not an F1 car that they woke up with and overnight it's there. What kind of program do you want? And I love the TCU because I'm not trying to down TCU, but TCU looked at the situation very veteran, and knew they had an opportunity to go on a run. Brent Venables didn't have that benefit, right? When he came in, he didn't have that veteran presence. That's why I like the way he's building it. And the SEC, this is a completely true comment, but I do think that they already have a crystal ball in for a Bryant Wesco, 5-star wide receiver prospect. Now, a crystal ball is not a commitment. Nothing but time, space, and opportunity until signing day. We get that for everybody. It's not to single out Oklahoma crystal balls for everybody.
Yeah, it's every school.
But that being said, there are certain schools that when these cats commit to, you don't see a wave of decommitments. Once again, crystal ball is not a commitment. But the one thing we do know, this is a program that had their worst season in a long time, and they are recruiting like they're coming off of an 11-win season. That's telling. That to me means something. If I'm looking and I'm trying to gauge the temperature of Oklahoma, I think Josh Pate does it, the fans. I think that's so fun where he'll ask the fans on Twitter. But because I don't have the access to thousands of fans like Josh Pate does, I look at recruits. How are you feeling? In the case of Oklahoma, y'all went 6-7, Jay, and you're recruiting like you were just in a college football playoff. So kind of closing words here, Jay, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, no, we one crystal ball that just came down the line again. This is the second or third one or fourth prediction that we've received has been this 5-star tight end Devon Mitchell out of Los Alamitos, California.
No, Los Alamitos, yep.
Formerly from Allen, Texas, teammates with Michael Hawkins, who's going to be on April 8th doing his commitment at quarterback, in which the anticipation he's going to come to Oklahoma, not only as a legacy, but he's the quarterback they want for the future behind
God,
Jackson
that hurts
Arnold.
because Mitchell's from Alabama, grew up an Alabama fan, and y'all are just in such a good position, and that kills me because I want that cat.
Yeah,
he's so good.
He wants to play with Hawkins at 6'3", 220. He's a 5-star in his current class over there in the 2025, but he's going to reclassify.
And I think he'll be a 5-star
at the exact same time. And he's going to be a 5-star at that point, too.
I think so.
So bringing in, as mentioned, bringing in the skills positions, we've got those. We've got a ton of those. I mean, we've got the coaches that have brought in the skills positions. I mean, DeMarco Murray, he's got a pretty high hit rate. Like, he's batting at a very high average of running backs coming into this program and doing very well and going to the pro and doing well in the pro as well. So that's not something I'm truly concerned about. Getting skills, I think that they're going to take their time and do it. We are O-line U. We're going to bring in a bunch of offensive linemen that's going to go pro and do things. Regardless of their star ranking, they're going to be good. So the trajectory, as you mentioned, Ty, and as you mentioned, Jance, it's crazy just how well it's crazy, but it's also not how well we're doing on the recruiting trail coming off of that season. It's like everybody understands. They're like, oh no, we saw what happened and we knew what happened behind the scenes. And we know that we can trust in you to do it. And so that's why I usually try to rock my NBV We Trust hoodie, because it seems like that's exactly what everybody is doing. They recognize NBV We Trust.
Yeah, you had a losing season. You finished 4th in recruiting. Like that's your result. I mean, that's insane.
And Eric, you're 100% right. You are 100% right with this comment. Eric says these recruits play the recruiting game, but ultimately they sign at other places. If you don't win on the field, you'll lose guys at closing time. You're usually 1,000% right. The problem is Oklahoma just came off of a 6-7 season, and they just signed a top 4 class. They were 6-6 on first signing day, because I think the Cheez-It Bowl was a few days after.
Yeah.
Early signing day. So
yeah,
you knew, and let's be honest, guys, that was a hard matchup for y'all. That was a top team in college football. I think Vegas expected them to win much more than they did.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people thought, okay, OU will be 6-7. So even before the first signing day, people knew this was a 500 team at best. Not at best. You get my point when I say at best.
No, you're right. Because of and Stuart Mandel over at The Athletic got a lot of flack from Sooner fans. I put out a video about it, and they ripped me up in the comments of, saying, oh, he's ridiculous. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And he basically said, no, OU's going to go probably 5-7 or 6-7 this season. And his reasoning is like, that is too much attrition for anybody to survive. It's going to take a year to get it right. And he was 100% spot on. He pointed out what those holes were. And we talk about this a lot, Ty, here on your show. But when BV said that in the initial presser that we're ripping this back to the studs, that should have told every Sooner fan to pump the brakes on a playoff season or a season with 10 wins or a season, honestly, with a winning record. We were it was just the game of inches that we kept losing. And so we have a chance to flip that. The stuff that he did at Clemson, we're seeing it in place here. Bringing Schmitty back from Texas A&M, a real guy that's great at conditioning players that are built to play in the SEC. You're kind of getting that now. And so, like I said, it was shocking, but at the same time, not. Players know who to go play for that's going to get them to the pros. They understand that. And they understand that there's multiples. He's like, you don't have to go one place to get it, but they know the ones that make the most sense. And luckily, Oklahoma is back to being that school.
Yeah, no doubt. And SEC Nick I'm gonna try and get Nino, Fanatic, one of the guys in here Monday or Friday for the live. I want to talk some Texas football because, look, as excited as Oklahoma fans need to be, and I know this is going to sting Oklahoma fans, Texas fans need to be very excited for the year they have in front of them. The team is this is as interesting as a Texas team as I can remember in terms of the talent they have returning. There's some question marks.
Since the Tom Herman 10-3 season,
yes, it is an interesting team. Very exciting for the Big 12, really. But guys, y'all know the drill. Go ahead and tell the people where they can find all your great content. We need to get out of here. That way Jay can go ahead over to your stream.
Yeah, I can do that. Jay Unfair Sports, you know where to find me. Just, like, subscribe. I talk OU football. I'm starting to pick up more Colorado football and talking college football in general. So, Ty, thanks a bunch for having me as usual. Jance, it's good to see you back, my man. We'll definitely be doing a lot more of this in the future.
Oh, yeah. And again, you guys can find me at Gen Sports on my YouTube page. Again, we can talk more college, more NFL draft prospects. Just did a Jalen Milroe piece, and I'm going to be following up on that by talking about Ty Simpson. So if you guys want to check out that, make sure to follow me over there. And then also Twitter. Like I said, if you guys want to get in contact with me, have more, conversations about football, whatever you guys want to talk about, hit me up on Twitter at Jan716.
Absolutely, guys. Well, we'll be back going at Monday, 5:30 Central Standard Time. I'll let y'all know with that. Catch you next time. See ya.
Peace.
Spinning wheel of